Hey everybody, Mike Flores here. In this video we are going to be talking about the extended domain zoo archetype. Modern domain zoo is a product of many fathers. The first great zoo player was of course MagicTheGathering.com's own Scott Johns, who won the Type 1 event at Pro Tour Dallas. The extended deck specifically is an extension of a Boros, or Boros with Curd Apes strategy advocated by top fanatics, deck designers, and Pro Tour finalists like Frank Karsten and Billy Moreno. What we started calling Domain Zoo about 2 extended seasons ago is, or at least was, synonymous with Gaia's Might Get There, the Boros Swiftblade deck that Raphael Levy used to win back-to-back Grand Prix half a world apart from each other. But the closest true relative to the modern Domain Zoo was a Sensei's Divining Top / Dark Confidant-fueled Tribal Flames deck designed by Patrick Chapin and played to a Grand Prix top 8 finish by Mark Herberholz. Mark lost to Raph in that one. Speaking of Sensei's Divining Top, of all the decks in the extended metagame, Zoo is probably the happiest over the banning of Sensei's Divining Top. Almost all the cards in the Domain Zoo deck cost only 1 or 2 mana, meaning that a counterbalance deck would not have to work very hard to lock the Zoo down with infinitely renewable permission. In addition, Zoo got one of the biggest lifts in the format from Shards of Alara, in the Curd Kitty, Wild Nacatl. Wild Nacatl represents an upgrade over even Curd Ape, as a 3/3 for 1 mana versus a 2/3 for 1 mana. In the offensive Zoo strategy specifically, via the presence of Curd Ape, Wild Nacatl, Isamaru Hound of Konda, and additional newcomer Figure of Destiny, the deck has at least 15 options to present 3, 2, or even 3 powered creatures attacking on turn 3, a ball lightning's worth of power, with burn backup to clear the path. We are starting with my friend Daniel O'Mahony Schwartz's undefeated Day 1 deck from Grand Prix Philadelphia earlier this year. So while this deck gains the max from the banning of Sensei's Divining Top, it also loses significant tools to Invasion and Odyssey rotations, including Gaia's Might, Grim Lavamancer, and Vindicate. Already noted, Zoo probably got the biggest single boost from Shards of Alara and Wild Nacatl. We're furthermore adding 4 copies of Figure of Destiny. This creature is awesome, but just keep in mind it can't be pumped by Overgrown Tomb. To replace Vindicate, I am choosing something a little surprising. Bant Charm. Bant Charm does everything that a Putrefy does, but better. And while it can't destroy a land on the play, it can counter a Gifts Ungiven or knock a Chroma out of the sky. More innovative ideas from Patrick Chapin. Plus, Bant Charm gives you something to do with your Steam Vents. Okay, now for a field test. The opponent wins the flip and plays a Seat of the Synod. Looks to be Affinity. We open up with a Wooded Foothills for a dual land and follow up with Wild Nacatl. He doesn't have the most explosive draw an Affinity deck can get on the second turn, but it's hard to complain about Arcbound Ravager. Turn 2, you might be thinking to yourself that I got the wrong land, that I should have gotten some kind of plains not just for my Wild Nacatl, but for the Lightning Helix in my hand, especially as Dark Confidant isn't even good against Affinity. I actually think I would have been happier getting Temple Garden on turn 1. So Wild Nacatl is in for 2, no blocks, I know, probably should have been 3, but we connect, and then follow up post-combat with a couple of red creatures, Curd Ape and Mog Fanatic. On his third turn, he drops another artifact land, and then plays Cranioplating, one of the key threats in the Affinity deck. He equips it to Arcbound Ravager, but then makes a curious attack. I'm not sure about this attack because my response is obvious. The Mog Fanatic blocks, puts damage on the stack, and points the extra point to the Ravager, forcing the sacrifice of multiple permanents to keep it alive. So on the next turn, I look out and Santa brings me the Temple Garden that I was talking about earlier. This allows me to point a 4-point Tribal Flames at the Arcbound Ravager. Note that I use Tribal Flames instead of Lightning Helix, because otherwise he would have just sacrificed the Arcbound Ravager and I wouldn't have gained any life. Could be important later. After a big swing for 5, I play a post-combat Mog Fanatic, which has been great so far, by the way. I have a couple of big swings, whereas he put most of his eggs in the Ravager basket and the Ravager's gone now. You'll notice that he has a pair of Shrapnel Blasts that made this game extremely close. So that kind of explains his attack earlier. If he had connected with the Ravager with plating, he would have almost certainly won, thanks to an additional 10-point life swing. I play the Helix at the end for a little more margin and actually end up winning at 4. Here comes game 2. Don't blink. Now remember what we said in the previous video about potential sideboard liabilities out of Affinity? Any of the really powerful linear strategies are going to have some kind of vulnerabilities, and we lucked out here that this is exactly the hand you want in the matchup. Now because we play 3 Katakis and 4 Ancient Grudges sideboarded, as well as 15 plus 2 or 3 power 1 drops, Even if we didn't get a hand this good, we are going to see really problematic anti-affinity hands with some nice regularity in games 2 and 3. So game 2 is a quick game. Not only did I have a turn 1 3-3, but I got the scoop on turn 2 thanks to Kataki. Even if I didn't get it there, I would have had Ancient Grudge to slow down anything but the fastest Atog plus Fatal Frenzy draw. As good as Affinity is proactively, most players have to think long and hard about how much they want to expose themselves in sideboarded games. I think the combination of speed, card quality, and devastating sideboard weapons against specifically Affinity are going to make Domain Zoo one of the most popular decks of Pro Tour Berlin. And thanks for watching. This has been Mike Flores with a pre-Berlin look at Domain Zoo.